One Sunday in November '97 on the road from Mexico City to Acapulco, 3 men were found abandoned who caught the attention of the Federal Highway Police. A foul smell surrounded them, even though they were sealed and had separate stains right there. The police opened one, broke the cement, and found remains of a body. At the Forensic Medical Service in the city of Iguala, they extracted 2 more bodies from the 2 drums that were still unopened. The mystery of the drummed was solved that same afternoon. The individuals were 3 tall men with signs of abuse that authorities identified as Jaime Godoy, Carlos Avila, and Ricardo Reyes. The first was an otolaryngologist, and the other 2 were plastic surgeons. The last one was also Colombian. All had been part of the team that on July 3rd of that same year, in a hospital in Mexico City, had subjected the mobster Amado Carrillo to a facial reconstruction and liposuction that would supposedly cost him his life. By then, 2 other doctors who had participated in that operation had already been sent to the cemetery, and 1 more was missing. No one knew who the perpetrators were, nor was there certainty about the true circumstances in which Amado Carrillo died. Official versions say that he suffered a heart attack after 8 hours of surgery, but there were witnesses who claimed that he had come out of the operating room alive. Then the autopsy revealed that he had been given a hypnotic drug mixed with anesthesia, which caused him a respiratory arrest. Even today, there are doubts about the causes of his death, and there are even versions that say he is still alive in Argentina or Chile, and others that even comment that he is a collaborator with the DEA. But well, you will tell me in the end what your conclusion is. In today's video, I'm going to tell you a little about the mysterious life of Amado Carrillo, better known as the Lord of the Skies. As mysterious was his death as the life of this drug lord who became a powerful trafficker of illicit substances in Mexico, leader of the Juarez cartel and known as the Lord of the Skies, and this because he owned the largest fleet of planes for trafficking from Colombia to Mexico and US. The DEA claimed that he owned at least 30 planes, including some Boeing 727s, from which he removed the fuselage, seats, and everything necessary to transport these illicit substances. When his life was taken, the DEA and Forbes magazine estimated his fortune to be around $25 billion in business and properties, accumulated over 17 years of career as a mobster. But let me tell you the basics to understand more or less what this person's life was like. In the small community of Guamuchilito, municipality of Nabolato, Sinaloa, Eston, Mexico, there was a farm of about 24,000 square meters where pines and palm trees grew and where goats, sheep, and ostriches. There lived until her death in 2014, Mrs. Aurora Fuentes Lopez, mother of 8 children, Angelica, Amado, Cipriano, Vicente, Guadalupe, Alberto, Rodolfo, and Jose Cruz. They say they called her my girl, and that her sons Amado and Vicente built that ranch for her that she left behind the years of poverty of the Carrillos Fuentes brothers, children of Mrs. Aurora and Vicente Carrillo Vega, and nephew of the mobster Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, one of the founders and leaders of the Guadalajara cartel. Amado, the second of the 8 brothers, adopted Huamuchilito as his hometown, as they say he was actually born in La Tuna, municipality of Badiraguato. On December 17, 1956, he barely studied because since adolescence, he enrolled with his uncle Nito to take care of his fields of this green plant that I always tell you that you already know what it is, and to serve as a mule for the transfer of these substances. The young Amado showed obedience, loyalty, discipline, and discretion when fulfilling his uncle's orders. It is also said that he was cunning, just like he was ruthless with his enemies, a womanizer, and that he liked alcohol and the same illegal substances and at the same time he was generous with his own, his family, and his two towns, La Tuna and Guamuchilito, to which he put a church, gardens, school, and other services. In reality, little was known about him when he was alive. The police only started to pursue him when they had an old photograph of him and they didn't even know his age. Secrecy accompanied him from his early years as a mobster when his uncle Doneto, as they called Fonseca, sent him to the town of Ojinaga in Chihuahua to learn everything about the business with one of his partners, Pablo Acosta Villarreal, better known as the Fox of Ojinaga. For the Fox, Amado was his favorite, his protege, and for more than 10 years he worked by his side, first as his assistant, and then as second in command. The partnership ended when Amado sent him to the cemetery in April of '87, as betrayal is very common in these types of environments. This cleared the way for Amado Carrillo to take control of the group of drug traffickers operating in Ojinaga, which later became the Juarez cartel, one of the most powerful in Mexico. When Amado Carrillo moved to Ojinaga in the '70s, a former officer from the Federal Security Directorate was leading the first operations of what would become the Juarez City Cartel in Chihuahua. His name was Rafael Aguilar Guajardo. With him, Amado Carrillo began to do business. He earned his trust, managed to get him to let him handle the substances that came from Colombia, and shared his contacts with him. In a short time, he had already displaced his partner in the shipments to the United States. So, by the end of the '80s, Amado Carrillo Fuentes left Jinaga and settled in Ciudad Juarez under total anonymity. From there, he built the power of a cartel that, according to the DEA, made weekly profits of $200 million from trafficking. In those years, he also earned the nickname of the Lord of the Skies with his fleet of twin-turbine Boeing planes and 68 seats and aircraft that carried up to 6 tons. The United States government estimated that in '94, the Juarez cartel handled 60% of the Colombian, you know what substance I'm referring to, that arrived in that country through Mexico, and that this single organization introduced 4 times more cargo than all its competitors combined. Amado Carrillo was pointed out as one of the most powerful mobsters in the world by overthrowing his Colombian competition, especially the Cali cartel from the American markets of Chicago, Atlanta, Oklahoma, and, started the most satisfied with him, was his partner, Aguilar Guajardo, but he did not share the success for a long time. On April 12, '93, on a dock in Cancun, Quintana Roo, this also in Mexico, Aguilar Guajardo was also sent to a better life when he was about to board a boat. As it happened with Acosta Villarreal, it was said that Amado Carrillo Fuentes had paid $1 million for. It took Amado Carrillo 6 years to climb to the top of the mafia from Ciudad Juarez, protected by police and even military, always guarded and discreet in his movements and lifestyle. He managed to go unnoticed, unlike the rest of the bosses of the time. His tranquility ended the day they attempted against him at the Bali High restaurant in the south of Mexico City. This on November 24, '93. He escaped alive thanks to his bodyguards, but the investigations put him in the spotlight. By then, Amado was involved in 26 investigations in the United States and in Mexico. There were 2 arrest warrants against him for crimes against health. The DEA was offering $5 million and 30 million pesos to the Attorney General's office for information leading to his arrest. Amado, apparently, trusted enough in the protection network he had woven, because the press claimed at the time that between May and July of '97, he traveled to Russia, Cuba, and Chile to expand his empire, and that among his plans to evade justice were plastic surgery and liposuction, taking advantage of how little he was known. On July 3, '97, to the Santa Monica Hospital, located in Polanco, one of the most exclusive areas of Mexico City, Antonio Flores Montes arrived to undergo precisely those surgical interventions under the care of a renowned Colombian doctor named Ricardo Reyes. The doctor knew that it was actually Amado Carrillo Fuentes, who died after the operation due to the residual presence of anesthetic pharmacological agents, according to the autopsy report that was released at the time. His death was declared at 6 in the morning in room 407, 2007, where Amado was completely alone. The next day, his body was transferred to the Garcia Lopez Funeral Home, one of the most exclusive in the Mexican capital, which would be responsible for transferring to Culiacan and then to Badiraguato. Antonio Flores Montes, 42 years old, originally from Zacatecas, according to his death certificate. That same afternoon, the PGR informed in a statement that since the night of July 4th, they received reports that the Lord of the Skies had lost his life. The information was endorsed by the DEA even without seeing the body. His body was publicly displayed a week later in the coffin. His face was dominated by that black mustache that aroused suspicions. But the question was whether they had to shave it off for the surgery. Speculations arose about a double, that this was one of Carrillo Fuentes' strategies to evade authorities and rivals. Around the same time, a commander of the judicial police of the district, José Luis Rodríguez El Chiquilín, disappeared. The press attributed a suspicious resemblance to Amado Carrillo. Moreover, nothing was known about him since a few days before the death of the drug lord. 2 years later, in 1999, journalist José Alfredo Andrade stoked the suspicions in his book, Desde Navolato Vengo, Biografía de Amado Carrillo Fuentes, in which he described the disappearances of those who had suggested that Amado Carrillo Fuentes was not dead. But the author also disappeared in November of that same year. More than 20 years after Amado's death, not even the PGR knows what really happened that day. The authorities were asked for the results of the histopathological studies carried out on the kidney, liver, lung, brain, cerebellum, marrow, myocardium, vessel, and pancreas of the body, analyzed in July '97. And also the results of the DNA identity, but they responded that there were no expert or DNA tests to publicly know the cause, and assured that 7 different areas of the PGR claimed that there were no documents on previous inquiries, detailed records, or open investigations involving the leader of the Juarez cartel. The only available information were 2 press releases about his death in '97. Following the death of Amado Carrillo, his brother Vicente, better known as the Viceroy, took over the Juarez cartel until October 9, 2014, when he was arrested by federal police in Torreon, Coahuila, along with his driver and escort Jesus Dimas Contreras. His brother Rodolfo, who they called the Kid, Gold, lost his life in '97 in a Chinépolis in Culiacan. Sinaloa, and Jose Cruz, the youngest of the brothers, disappeared. In the Guamuchilito estate, only the sisters and the memory of one of the most powerful narco families in Mexico remain, as well as the mystery of whether this drug lord died or simply disappeared. If you liked this video, don't forget to follow me on my social networks, and if you're watching me on YouTube, don't forget to activate the bell, so you get the notifications. My name is Pepe Chericero, and this is Pepe Mystery.